Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I am Barry Rowland, and in this episode, we'll be reviewing the SimLab triple monitor stand, the quad monitor mount accessory for a fourth monitor in case you have one, and a keyboard mount. Now these products come as a kit that you assemble yourself, and they're constructed from 80/20 extruded aluminum profile. And we'll be turning this pile of profile, brackets, nuts, and bolts into this finished monitor stand. So let's get to it. So now we're going to look at some of the assembly hardware, the nuts and the bolts, if you will, and the actual profile that we're going to be using here in this assembly. First off, all this profile is based on what is known as a 40 series. Now that's 40 millimeters because this kit, as you know, comes from Europe. Now over here in the States, this would be known as a 15 series because it's 1.5 inches, which is very close to the 40 millimeter. And I'll give you a close-up look at this 40 millimeter piece. And you can see right here, it's nothing more than a square. And it's the same all the way around as far as the channels in it. So we got 40 millimeters this way, 40 millimeters that way. Now this is going to be the bottom foot, if you will, of the upright. This is called a 40/80 profile. And the reason for that is, if you look at the end here, you can see that it's really two 40/40s joined together. So it'll make it 80 this way, and it makes it 40 that way. So this will form the upright. It's a very heavy piece, and we're going to get the total weight of this rack, or this monitor stand rather, when we're all done. I'm going to put it all on the scales and add it all up and see what we have here compared to my old monitor stand. Now, to assemble this, what we're going to use, first let's go over some of the hardware. This is what's known as a T-joining plate, and this has 8 holes in it, and it's about a little less than 1/4 inch. It's 5 millimeters. Again, this is for the 40/40, so it's all in millimeters. And I'll give you a closer look at this plate right here. And you can see that it's 5 millimeters thick. It's got a certain shape to it where we have the 4 holes here, and we have 4 straight across the bottom. So that's what we're going to use. The actual foot is going to fit in these holes, and the upright will actually be in those, resting on the foot, but we'll see that in a minute. Now, to assemble this, we're going to use T-nuts. Now, the T-nuts that we're going to use here are different than your typical slide-in, what is known as an economy T-nut that I've always used with my 10 series profiles. And I'll show you the difference close up right here. All right, there's the regular T-nut. See if I can get a focus here for you guys. All right, so here's the slide-in T-nut. It's very flat. It's got a little rim on the bottom here, and that faces down toward the profile. And you simply attach it to the screw that's going through whatever piece of profile or attachment you're putting on the profile, and just slides into the channel. Now this nut, which is more expensive of course, is what's included in the kit. And what they call this is a self-aligning slide-in or roll-in T-nut with a spring ball. And what that little ball is, you can see right there, it's actually spring loaded. There's a spring captured inside of this housing here, or this nut, and it lets the ball go up and down. What that does, it keeps tension on the bottom of the channel, which keeps the actual nut pressed up against the top of the channel, which does a few things. First of all, it makes it more secure. Once you stick it in, it doesn't slide around, doesn't go anywhere. And secondly, you can just actually put it in the profile very simply by doing this. And I'll show you guys how this rolls in. It just kind of sits in here, and it'll actually, you can push it in, that spring ball, and it slides right in. Then you can take the bolt and kind of steady it a little bit and flatten it out, because it will flatten out. It can be a little fiddly, but once you have it in and flat, you can get your bolt in there. So what this will allow you to do is, if you already had something on this profile, let's say something was here, and you had something else here, but you wanted to attach something between it. Instead of having to take everything apart, you can actually just put this in here and then go ahead and bolt it, whatever it is you want to, straight into the channel. So we'll go ahead and slide that back out now. And you can also see that when it's in the channel, it doesn't go anywhere. So that's another plus. So when you're actually trying to assemble something, it's not sliding all around on you. Whereas just the economy nut like this would be sliding around the channel, and every time you turned it a certain way, it would just slide right out, which of course is not impossible to work with, but it sure is easier when you're using something like this T-nut. And of course we've got some bolts here that are going to all the T-nuts, and these are actually a 5mm regular bolt that you can order with all the 80/20 profiles. And this is metric. Again, all this is metric because it comes from Europe. And the last thing we're going to see here is actually the feet, or foot in this case. And this foot is going to go on the bottom of this 40 profile right here, like that. And it also has, they've supplied also some T-nuts, which are still the roll-end spring ball T-nut, but it is a smaller version of it. I can get a focus here. And we got a metric, focus, there we go. And we got a metric bolt that's going to go through there. So, very simply, put your bolt in, and we'll screw it into our T-nut, and we're good to go. We can slide it right into the actual foot of our assembly. All right, so now what we're going to do is take the plate, and we have to put in 8, no less than 8, of these T-nuts, and of course the bolts. But I'm not going to sit here and make you guys watch me do that. I've already got one ready to go. So the curious thing about this, and I'll show you over here in the close-up camera, is that no matter which way you turn these, if you have these type of nuts on there, you can see that the ball bearing parts are always pointing down, like that. So you rotate it, they always go down, which is really kind of neat because it kind of self-aligns if you're going to be putting your profile on this. Now, when you put these on, you don't want to put them on too far as onto the bolt itself. You want to make sure you've got plenty of room for that to go up like that, so it will go into the profile. Now, how I do this, and of course there's probably 20 ways to do this, but how I do it is make sure I've got plenty of room on the nuts that I'm going to be using so that they don't bind up at all when I'm trying to slide them in. I can tell visually where it needs to be just by this little groove here. I'd like to keep them flush with the bottom of that groove in the actual T-nut. And that's just from experience of doing this for a while. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put this into the big 4080. And how I'm going to do it is, show you guys how to do it, is just lay it on the table right here. If I lay it on the table, of course, that forces all the bolts flat up against the plate, which makes my nut stick up. Did I just say nut stick up? All right, so what we're going to do here now is just slide it on. And it's really easy to do. Once you start using 80/20 profile, whatever series you're using, you can just see how easy it is to use. You want to use it for everything, really, when you're building things. All right, so I'll just pick that up so it rests on the plate, and already I'm aligned, and I can go in with these. And I got to make sure, obviously, that the thing is level down there. That one wasn't quite there. All right, so we just slide them in. Now, once they make contact with the balls, then it'll get snug, but you can I just use my finger to help push them in. Easy enough. Like I said, this stuff couldn't be easier to use once you've done it a few times at least. And we'll get these in, and that's enough, because we don't want to use these, because these are going to be used over here on our 40 profile. So what we're going to do with the 40 profile now is slide it in the same way we did that piece. And I'll just put this in here, and once it gets into the groove, just help it with my finger there to get past the spring ball. That one's a little bit high, I believe, just by looking at it. All right, here we go. And there it is. And once it's in, of course, we can slide it any way we want to. Now, on the diagram that I was looking at for actually assembling this on the website, it actually has about, I'd say about this much sticking out on the other side, which seems reasonable to me. Now, what I'll also do is I'll just go ahead and flip this over. Get that other T-nut out of the way. And it's really easy once we're at this point, because all we're going to do is snug this up with our trusty 5mm wrench. So let's go ahead and snug those up. I'm going to get them real tight because I may want to adjust this later on. I just want to snug things up so that they're not rocking around when I'm moving this assembly around, trying to figure out how I want it set up. Easy enough. And as far as the feet go, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to actually put these in, but it's the same deal. You just push that down, it'll slide right in, and you tighten it up and you have a foot. And a nice rubber foot so your stand won't slide around unless you want it to. Then you take a little weight off of this bottom foot here and it'll slide for you. All right, so that's about it as far as assembling this. You can see this is going to be an easy assembly. And the reason it's so easy is because this came as a kit. And all the parts are provided for you. You can actually go out and buy this profile yourself, have it cut, or cut it yourself if you have the facilities to do that with, and buy all the hardware and the bits and pieces to assemble these things. And you might even save $1 or $2. But I've been using this profile for a long time, and I could have done the same thing. But I think if you use 80/20, you tend to order things that you really don't need, number one. And number two is you have to study for a long time to make sure you are getting the right stuff for all of the pieces that you have, because there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of different sizes and different bolts and different nuts and different accessories you can buy for this stuff. So having a kit is a plus because all you got to do is take it out of the bag, lay it on the table or the floor, and just put this bad boy together. So I'm not going to show you guys me assembling the next leg, but once I get the legs done, then we'll take a look at the cross member and see how that goes together. So now we're ready to put the uprights on the crossbar. Now, I have to have a certain amount of room in between my uprights. Like most people, of course, you're going to have enough room so that your rig doesn't hit it. It'll fit on either side of your rig. But in my case, I have to consider that this rig has traction loss in it, so the rear end's going to move. And I'll show you in a short clip here exactly what that looks like. So you can see here from the movement of the traction loss that I have to consider how much room I'm going to need to make sure that even at the extreme left or right movement of the traction loss, that it doesn't hit the upright. So what I've done is gone ahead and measured it. And it's 45 inches that I'm going to need, and that includes the width of the upright, which is 40 millimeters. Not too bad. I got plenty of room left. I got 9 inches left on each side of this cross member bar. So how are we going to fix these legs? Well, we're going to use a special bracket that they've included in this kit. And it's just a flat bracket made for assembling this profile to other pieces, to each other. But they've gone and got a couple of special holes here, and I'm going to give you a close-up look at it. It has a bevel, if you will, or they have been countersunk. And that's so that the flathead screws can go down on those countersinks, because we're going to mount this just like that on the bar. And the actual upright leg is going to ride across this bar, and we're going to tighten it with screws on the bottom here. And I'll show you that in a second. So this isn't the only way to do this, because when we mount it like this, you got to make sure that your measurements are dead on. Because if they're not dead on, then you're going to have to make adjustments, and making adjustments once this bracket is on is not very easy because you've already got it mounted to the uprights. So the uprights are covering the screws you need to loosen to be able to slide it this way. You can still slide the upright this way, no problem. As far as the height adjustments, no problem. But here, you won't be able to do that. But the big bonus of this is it gives you a very clean look on the upright when it's attached to your cross member. Now, there's other ways to do it. In fact, I probably would never thought of that. In fact, I couldn't even find that bracket. But I was thinking more along the lines of this when I was thinking of doing it in the past. That just get a couple of these L brackets and run your profile right through the middle there, and that way you could keep these screws loose to adjust the height of the cross member as it moves up and down the profile, or you can keep it tight there, loosen the ones that are attaching it to the cross member, and this way your profile can actually go laterally, so you can adjust the width of it. But if you measure careful enough, you probably aren't going to need this. It'll be done right the first time. So we're going to go ahead and put this bracket on. Of course, I've already got one made up with our T-nuts. And we'll go ahead and you can see again the countersunk screws, or the flat screws as we call them, flatheads, are down way underneath so it won't interfere with the profile sliding across it. So let's go ahead and put this one in. Give you guys a look here. All right, so it's in, and I've already got a mark here of where I need to be with the edge, the inside edge of this bracket, so I'll just slide it right up to there. And that's good. So now all I have to do is tighten it up. And that requires not a 5, but a 4mm wrench. And we'll just go ahead and snug these up. Make sure I'm staying as straight as I can. And once I think I'm straight, then I'll go ahead and just snug them up a little more. Now, to make sure they're straight, I have an extra tool for that. That's what's a good thing about having a garage full of measuring tools. I can just take my little mini square here and put it up against it and see what it looks like. And that is dead on straight. Got lucky on that one. All right, so now that it's straight, what I'm going to do is put the upright on it, and we're just going to go ahead and pick up the upright, and we're going to slide it across here. And I have another bar of 40 right here to support the other side of the upright. And I'm just going to slide it all the way over until it's balanced, and then snug it up a little bit, even though, of course, that's going to be too low for my cross member. But I can always set it down on the floor then. That's the idea anyway. And then I can adjust the height of the crossbar at will. So this is the cross member leg. Of course, you guys may have remembered this in the other video. It's all set up. I even put the little rubber feet on the foot section of it. So all we're going to do is, we can keep everything nice and straight here. Slide it in the channel. And just keep sliding it and keep sliding it until I get kind of balanced on it to where it doesn't want to pull back too much, which is right about there. All right. And you can see over there in the close-up what it looks like when it's mounted. So now we're going to snug up the bolts or screws that are underneath here to keep this from going anywhere. Well, that's all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and mount the other one. Then I'm going to collectively set this onto the ground. And once I've done that, then I'll make the final adjustments on the height I'm going to need on the cross member bar. So when we come back, we'll see it sitting on the floor with the bar at the height that I'm going to need it at. All right, we've got it done. Our cross member is mounted to our two uprights, and I've actually checked my measurement here, and it's exactly at 45 inches, as you know, where I need it to be to clear my action on the traction loss on the sim rig here. Also, it's exactly in the middle here, 42 inches tall, which is where the middle of my monitor bracket is on this other monitor stand currently. Now, of course, I can raise and lower it to fine-tune it, and it's easy enough to do it with a screw here, 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 and here. So now I can just slide it up and down, and I might have to make some micro adjustments to get exactly where I want it to as far as clearing the steering column on my wheel. This is very sturdy, by the way. Once you have this together and tightened down, it's really a stiff assembly. In fact, it supports a lot of weight too. So you can see I'm about 150, 155 pounds. It's got no problem holding me, so it certainly won't have any problem holding 4 monitors at about 13 pounds each. So next what we're going to do is put the side monitor mounts on, or the arms, if you will, that are going to hold my side monitors. So let's go ahead and get to that. All right, now we're ready to mount the side arms for our side monitors. Again, this is a 4080 profile, and this is a bit long for a 27-inch monitor, but this stand itself has got a range of 24 inches to 32 inches. So I may be trimming this later, but I have to watch and wait and see once I get everything mounted up. We're going to use these brackets, and I'll give you a quick look here. And you can see there's 3 holes and a slot in it, and it kind of looks like a boomerang, if you will. And the hole up here is a pivot point bolt, and here is a bolt that's going to be able to slide back and forth through the slot, which gives your monitors a range of 40 to 70 degrees as far as angle, according to SimLabs. Now, first we're going to put the brackets on, And this is the bottom bracket. So let's go ahead and slide them in. Top bracket. And I like to snug them up with just a little bit to not have them too loose sagging around to be able to get the profile in where I want it. Because the profile can be a little tricky sometimes to put in. Because it's heavy, number one, you got to hold it with one hand while you're trying to guide it in with the other ones. So we're going to make sure that your T-nuts are at the bolt inside your T-nut is not too far up, so you got plenty of room to get them in. And they can still be fiddly even with that. All right, so now let's go ahead and see if we can slide the profile in. Go ahead and lift up that way. I got the bottom in. Okay, the top's in. Got it in for the next bottom. Make sure my top one over here doesn't flip around too much. Plus it wants to slide around the slot a little bit sometimes too. But let's see if we can get it to feed in there. And there it goes. All right, so now it's in. Of course, it's got a lot of sag to it, so we're going to tighten everything up. And again, these are all 5 mils, so I'm going to tighten the brackets themselves up first. I'm going to grab the top one. And as I'm doing it, I'm going to take some weight off the bar, which will facilitate me getting this thing on nice and tight. So there's the top ones are snugged up. And I'll go ahead and do the same with the bottom ones. Pardon my head in the shot. All right, so now everything's tight, top and bottom bracket. So this will give you a general, before I tighten everything up on as far as the pivots go, this will give you a general idea. I need to pull this out just a little bit to clear, this back bar's got to clear the actual face of this crossbar. And you can see now the movement that I'm getting. So that should be 70 degrees and this should be 40 degrees. So again, we'll find that out once we get everything tightened up. Now, another thing to check is if we're level, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this up and tighten everything down a little. Trying to get it snug. But not too snug because I still want to move it around a little bit. Just trying to get everything set up to where things are lining up straight. Because I want to test something here. What I really want to test is if I'm getting level or staying level based on the crossbar over here. So I'm just tightening everything up first and see how we're doing. All right. So if I take my level over here and put it here, I know you guys can't see this, but you're going to have to trust me. It's dead on level right there. Now if I take the arm and put it on that, you can see well, you can't see, but I can see I'm also dead on level here. So I'm level here and I'm level here across the top of the arm. That means that my monitors are going to be very level, which I always have had a problem with them being perfectly level with each other with this other stand that I've been using. Never could quite get them lined up. I know some of you guys probably have the same problems if you have other monitor stands. I had an Aboto Revolution that was just terrible to try to get everything straight. But I could get it as straight as I possibly could, but it still wasn't perfect. Now I'm trying to get perfection with these. And so far it's looking good because this is level and this is level. Now one more thing I want to talk about before we move on to putting the other arm in and then we'll come back and take a look at everything is you have to mount this monitor plate, which mounts your monitor, onto the crossbar before you put the other arm on, because it has to slide in, and you can see, well, over here you can see, it's just too wide as far as too tall to get in between there. And I'm going to give you a close look at what this plate looks like. And you can see here, it's 5 mil just like everything else, and we've got 4 holes that are counterbored there. You see that? And the reason they're counterboard is we're going to put the flathead screws in here and mount this on the crossbar. And when the flathead screws will be covered actually when the monitor gets mounted against this piece of it. And you'll see that once I mount one of the monitors up. But remember, you're going to need to put one of these in before you put the other arm on. And I just happen to have one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this mounted, and then I'm actually going to mount the other arm. And then we'll come back, and I might as well go ahead and mount the rest of these. I'll put one over here and one on the other arm too. And then we'll come back and see where we're at from there. All right, so we're back, and you can see that I have all the side monitor arms on now, and I have the monitor mounts mounted. And I actually put the level on this thing, and I know you guys can't see this, but it's perfectly level. And both of these arms are sitting perfectly level, which is something I've never had before in a monitor stand. And I can't wait to see how this all lets my monitors line up. I should be perfectly lined up, where I've never had that before, where I always had to wiggle them or tilt them a little bit to get the picture actually to line up all the way across the 3 monitors properly. So the next what we're going to do is we're going to look at the quad or 4th monitor mount. Because I run a 4th monitor to run my statistics, stats, and things like that, and even the control panel for my sim experience rig, so I'll be able to manipulate that while I'm in the game. We're going to go ahead and put that together now. We'll show you the hardware and the pieces that we're going to use, and I'm actually going to have to cut some of this 4040 to make this work, so we'll get to that next. All right, we're ready to do our final assembly bit to make this stand complete. Now, I went and ordered the quad mount also on my 3 monitor stand that you can get from SimLabs. They call it a quad, 4th monitor mount, whatever you want to call it, and it does include some extra 4040 profiles. We get 2 more brackets, which I've already mounted to the 4040 rather profile, the uprights. I got 2 of those, got one here and got one here. Now, didn't need to show you that putting this together because it's the same old thing. It's just another one of the same brackets we've seen. We already used to mount over here on the side monitor mounts for the triple stand. There is a bit of a different piece here, only one different piece we're going to use, and that's this inside corner bracket. And the reason I want to show you this, it's not like your regular corner bracket where it's flat. They actually got, and I'll show you over here, they actually got these little tabs on them. And those are anti-rotation tabs. And what that means is they go into the channel and it doesn't rotate. It keeps the bracket from rotating. And you'll see where we would need this when we actually assemble the crossbar between these 2 uprights. Speaking of the crossbar that's going between the 2 uprights, it's another long piece of 4040 profile. Very long piece. Now, how long? Well, I had to cut 10 inches off. And the reason I had to cut 10 inches off was because I didn't know how far or how much distance I was going to need between these 2 uprights until I actually measured it for my sim rig. And you won't know either until you measure it for your rig or whatever you're going to do with it, your personal situation. Then you're going to have to cut it. Now, I used to cut these using a hacksaw, but now I'm cutting the 8020 with a miter saw or chop saw with a 60-tooth metal blade in it, a non-ferrous metal blade, which cuts the 8020 profile very well. In fact, I got a little short clip here I'm going to show you of me cutting this. Now you can see here that I'm cutting through the aluminum and I'm working the blade through it, and it cuts it really easy, but I like to work the blade a little bit at a time until I finally get through. And you can see also there's a bunch of aluminum chips flying up here. It does make a rather big mess, but it's much better than using a hacksaw like I used to. And as you can see, once you cut through it, it's a very clean cut, but obviously there's a lot of shavings to be cleaned up, and I just usually blow that out into the yard as long as the wife's not looking. All right, so now we've got these, and we're going to assemble them over here to the uprights. Again, very simple stuff, just like we had before. And let's make sure I got this far enough out so it'll feed in here. Doesn't look like I do. So I'll give it a couple of twists, and it should go in a little easier, and there it is. Do the same thing to this guy. All right, so there's one in. And let's go ahead and set the other side in. And this goes in the front groove of this 8040 profile. Going the wrong way there. And there we have it. Now, I do like to go ahead and snug these up before I mount this crossbar, just to keep things from wiggling around too much. You don't want to get them super tight because then you won't have any play at all, which is something we don't want in the other direction. So I'll just go ahead and twist this up just a little bit. There we go. So it's going to hold it from, because I'm going to put a little pressure on it probably when I put this thing in here, so it's going to hold it still, at least still enough for me to make it work right. Now, before I put this on here, I don't want to put it on without putting in the 4th monitor mount, because if I did that, then I'd have big trouble trying to get the mount on, because you'll see once we get this on here, there's really no way to mount something else on here without rolling in the nut and then trying to get to it that way. Much easier to do it when you have it here on your workbench. So we'll go ahead and slide this guy in. A little easier when you turn this thing upside down. The other one in. Good to go. So now we have it on. I'm going to slide it about midway, and I'll measure it later and make the final adjustments, obviously, before I actually put the monitor mount in. So it's going to go up here like this. So that means I need my angle bracket in with this part. And I've already got one made. So I'll go ahead and slide that in. I'm really going to slide in one side at a time. I'm going to snug this down because I don't want it moving around on me once I get it ready to go into the uprights. Alright, so put that on there. Got to assemble this one, got to have it ready to go, because this was the one I used to show in my example of what this looks like. So bear with as I screw another one on, then we'll be ready to go. Put this one over here. All right, we'll snug it down. And I always like to get it just even with the end when I'm doing this. Just keep it a little bit snug there. All right. So actually, it's going this way, so these will be pointing down. So what I'm going to do now is, obviously, just feed this baby in here. And hopefully I got enough room on these nuts to where it doesn't fight me too much. Got one end in. And got this end in. Well, that was just too easy. And you can see it slides up and down. This upward and downward sliding motion will give us our, obviously, height measurement or height adjustment on it. Go ahead and snug this down a little because they are very, very loose right now. They just might move on me. And this is where these anti-rotation brackets come to play. A little higher. So when I snug it up, you can see here now, I can put a twist on this, and you can see it moving around a little bit because I don't have it all the way cinched down tight, but you can see that it won't rotate out of the channel. And we're going to hang our fourth monitor here, and I'll probably be bringing this back, and of course I can actually adjust it up or down, however high or low I want to go. And that's about it. So now we've got the quad mount on, and really this is finished. Except for some trimming, I might be cutting some of the 80-20 profile, the 80-40 pieces. Once I get all the monitors set together and measured and lined up so I know exactly how much I'm going to need, because this is a lot of arm over here. And I don't think I'm going to need that much with the 27-inch monitor, so I might end up cutting some of this off. And I might even cut some of the cross member off just to dress things up and tidy things up a little bit. And besides, I have that chop saw now with that metal blade in it, so it's not that hard to do. So when we come back, we'll take a look at the final assembly, and we'll have the monitors actually hanging on it so we can see what that looks like. Here is the final configuration for my monitor stand. And I'm going to come around the side here so you guys can see the way the edges of these monitors match up down here. And you see they're nice and level and even with each other. And it's the same way with the top. And of course we have the exact same thing going over here on the left side of the monitors. And the fourth monitor, and when I look up at it, lines up really great so I can get a clear picture of my Sim Commander control panel and any telemetry stuff that I might be running. So let's go ahead and move over to the outside. And as I said, I would be cutting some of this profile off, and I have, as you can see. It's definitely shorter over here on the crossbar, but I still left about 1.5 inches just for wiggle room in case I needed it. And my measurements were off somehow, but they weren't, so everything worked out pretty well. Now I did take a lot more actually off the side monitor bars because I'm only going to run a 27-inch monitor. If I was thinking I was going to run something else bigger, then I would have left more metal on it. I still left myself about 3 inches here, just in case. I wanted to do something else as far as slide them around a little bit, but I'm not going to be able to use that, or have to use that rather, because I'm only going to run 27-inch monitors. They're the best for resolution for me in my situation, so I'm not going to run anything bigger. I've tried the bigger stuff and it just didn't work out. So we can also see we got all the nice cap ends installed on the upper part and down here on the legs. Everything is nice and tidy looking with those ends on it. The fourth monitor bracket, or the quad assembly accessory, really went together well. I did change some things on it. As you can see, I've actually mounted the brackets on the inside of the uprights instead of the outside where I had it before, and I have set them back to the rear channel instead of the front channel. That's to get the monitor itself to come back far enough to kind of match up with the rest of the monitors. If it was in the front channel, it would be sticking forward a bit. But again, the beauty of the way this kit works is you can make these adjustments without too much trouble at all. In the corner brackets, remember they have the anti-twist tabs in them? They're doing a great job, because you know this fourth monitor hanging here like this is putting a twisting torque on that crossbar, and those channel tabs are keeping it from rotating, which is very nice, very compact solution. Another way to do it, of course, would be use a corner bracket that had 2 screws in each side. That would help as far as twisting, but this is a much more compact way to do it. And they have nice caps on them too. And of course, because I put these brackets on the inside instead of on the outside, it was about 1.5 inches difference, and I had to cut some more off the crossbar. But not a big deal, as we saw before when you saw me cutting the 80/20 on the saw. It's a real easy thing to do, so I just did it. Over here, I wanted to stop for a second and show you these standoffs that come in this kit. Another advantage of having a kit like this, instead of having to stack a bunch of washers to get me the offset I need to mount this monitor on this bracket, which will still allow me enough room to move the monitor from side to side in the slots in the actual brackets, I would have to use washers if I didn't have these standoffs that screw in to the back of the monitors. Really neat trick, something that I'm not sure how long it would take me to source something like that. Again, big plus on getting these things in kits so we can just take it out of the box and build them and have all the parts we need. All right, let's take a quick trip around the side here, around the back. And I still have my level up here. I use this level to make sure that the back crossbar is level, and I also put it on each of the monitor sidebars to make sure they're level too as I'm tightening everything together. And once you get all that done like that, it's a beautiful thing because it is just a perfect picture. And on the side, we cut those on this side too, and also put a level on the uprights just to make sure they are level too, so everything is squared up. Right, so that's about it for the final configuration of the way I ended up with my monitor stand. Next, I'm going to jump over to another accessory that I got with this kit, which is the keyboard accessory, and we'll take a look at that. Now let's take a look at the keyboard accessory kit that SimLabs also offers with their stand, or really for any 820 or 80/20 project. Now first off, this is sitting on a piece of 20mm or 2040 because it's twice as long as it is high for the support. And it has very nice countersunk or flathead screws into some countersinks spaces, which make it nice and flat across the top of it. Has a nice lip at the bottom for catching your keyboard, of course. And over here, you actually attach this to a knuckle assembly right here. And you can see you can use this thing like a card door. You can get in, do your typing, and then swing it out of the way. Very neat. And there's a nut, of course, in this channel here and a bolt here. And once you loosen this up, you can make it higher or make it lower for whatever fits your requirements the best. And just like the 80/20 profile itself from the monitor stand, you can actually push this stuff out of the way, like opening a car door when you get in and out of your rig, which makes it a lot easier. Then once you're in, you can pull your car door shut, or your monitor, and then you can pull this into your typing and even push it out of the way when you're ready to do your racing. Again, a well thought out little piece of kit here. They do a great job over at SimLabs putting this stuff together and assembling all the parts for you. It just went together like a champ, no problems. And what we're going to do next is look at the final configuration of my monitors configured and hanging on this actual profile or the monitor stand. And then we'll give our final thoughts on what we think about this whole process. Final thoughts on the SimLab triple monitor stand kit. Richard Salterin started SimLab after a career as a mechanical engineer, where he spent, well, most of his time designing manufacturing types of plants. So I would say he knows a thing or two about designing and producing a solid platform for hanging your monitors. He also designs and sells kits for some really nice looking sim racing chassis and other sim racing gear, like these great steering wheel extenders. He first started SimLab in June of 2015, and now it's his full-time job. I think Richard's going to do well, quite well, in this industry as long as he keeps delivering a level of product that I received here. All the required parts for the build were present, and the component selection was well thought out and executed. If you're in the market for a monitor stand, or a sim racing rig, or even one of these great wheel extenders, I can definitely recommend the products at SimLab. Well, that's it for now. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel.